salaries are and where everything's going to go. And I tell you, if we could capture the 100, I think it's a total of 170 kids throughout Eastern Florida State at the 4 different locations that want to be teachers, that would be an amazing thing. So we have to tie something there. But just seeing that youth and that everybody that's standing back and they want to do so much good for the community and for the kids, seeing that next generation was amazing. I also wanted to say thank you to the Quest PTO for having me over. We sat down and talked issues on growth in the Viera area. I want to say thank you to Sue Hahn, who presented us some documentation, and we have on October 23rd one of the biggest growth issue answers for the Viera area that we've seen in years, and that was no small task. Ms. Hahn, you were amazing. You were amazing, working with all those PTO groups and doing a great job. I also want to say thank you to Croton. Came across a teacher, Miss Walters at Croton, who's been there for over 30 years at Croton Elementary. Planted a tree in the back that looks like it's 100 years old when she started there. And what I felt from the Croton family was the idea of family, where they are so connected to their kids and how many of them actually have been at that school forever and how they just intertwine themselves with the students to give them what their needs are beyond just education. And that was an amazing program that I saw there. I also spoke at Ralph Williams, talk about construction. Cape Canaveral Construction was there for air conditioning issues. The man was literally inside of the closet for like 4 hours trying to figure it all out and work on it. And his dedication is, I had to give a shout out to Cape Canaveral Construction because all of the administration and all of the teachers loved him being there because he was honest and he told them and he came there immediately to fix the program. I just love kids. Roy Allen, I went and spoke at their faculty meeting. The energy there was absolutely amazing. Like, I have never been to a faculty meeting where the energy was that keyed up. Of course, it was a Friday, and I know that there were some cool things going on, but she did some amazing things, and she donated the trophy that remember the Decades in Review that Roy Allen won? She said, hey, I think it would be better to be put into Dr. Mullins' office for everybody to see, so she gave that to me so that I could bring it to him, so that was pretty cool of her. The next one was Harbor City. I went in there, spoke at their faculty meeting, was amazing. Many of the teachers there, they have probably arguably one of the best intertwined volunteer programs that provides backpacks and redoes their teacher's lounge and brings them food once a month, and it was just amazing to see the community tie in there. Kennedy Middle School, Miss Tomlinson actually went around and painted with staff the entire school and buffed the floors before the school started to set it in. You walk around Kennedy Middle School and it is like a brand new school. I mean, I'm not kidding you. That thing's over 50 years old or close to it. It's one of our presidential schools and just absolutely amazing what she did there. The dedication to become a new principal and do that was off the charts. And I wanted to tell you, on top of my visit to Johnson and to Kennedy, I asked all the kids, what would you like us to do that would be better? And what they said was, every single class, more middle school sports. No lie. Volleyball, soccer, please give us more sports, please. Give us the opportunity. At Kennedy, they have a volleyball program that has close to 170 kids last year. It's just a volleyball volunteer program. It's amazing to give the girls that opportunity. So something that I told them that we were looking at in the future. And then I visited Sherwood and I walked into an ambush. I asked those kids, what would you like us to change? And they said more candy and more pizza breaks. So I was standing there, I said, okay, I walked into the wrong group here for that. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Boberski. Donna put together an ESE parent advisory group that we met last week, or the week before, I can't remember. And what it was is that school participants from teachers to parents to everybody come to this meeting, and it's going to be 4 times a year, and discuss the topics that they're feeling at their schools in a collaborative effort to fix some of the issues that we have with our ESE population. And I thought that that was a huge step in the right direction to tying in our community and our needs as a whole. And then I just wanted to say thank you to all the teachers and all of the students who had me through all of these schools and met with me and got on the level with me as far as what their needs were, how they felt, and what we need to do as a school board. And that's it. That's all. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Mr. Ziegler.
I think, Mrs. Susan, you feeling okay today? You're a little light on energy.
Maybe you should have got some of that coffee I told you
It's
about.
the suspenders, they're tight.
At Roy Allen, that Lori McGlory has that coffee percolator. You should get a little coffee when you stop by there, get a little energy.
Maybe that's what that is.
Shout out, first of all, to the board. It's great to see everybody in pink. I think that's really nice, and Dr. Mullen's wearing a pink tie every day. That's a great mission. I love the way you're doing it, so thank you for being a true leader on that. That's awesome. I'm going to give a shout out to a employee who's in the room, who I'm going to embarrass a little bit. And unfortunately, this employee is leaving us. Our acting transportation director, Randy Wheeler, I want to thank you for your service, and I want to point out to the board what we're losing here. I don't know if you all remember, but when we had an issue in transportation with some theft, this is the gentleman that raised the flag and led the charge to resolve the problem. His experience is second to none in that department. I wish we could figure out a way to keep you. I'm not giving up on that. I don't want to lose you. But thank you very much for your service and what you've done for transportation. That's a tough department. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler. Dr. Mullins?
Thank you, Mr. Craig. To follow up on Ms. Deskovich's comments about visiting Palm Bay High School, so the story behind the ties is it actually began a few weeks ago. I was at the PI event at the Melbourne Civic Center, and I met Mr. Ivan. I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name because I'll get it wrong, but the manager at Belk, and I had just been nominated to be a Real Men Wear Pink candidate for the fight against breast cancer for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I said, I don't have any pink ties. You want to help with the campaign? And he responded, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it got me thinking, I wonder if our fashion classes might be interested. And I reached out to Kelly Baker, who I've known for probably 15 or 18 years. She's the fashion teacher at Palm Bay High School, was at Southwest when I was there as an administrator. And I said, Ms. Baker, do you think your kids would be interested in making a pink tie or two for the campaign, and I'll showcase it and that sort of thing. She says, yeah, let me see what happens. Well, she ran with it. She got other schools involved, Vieira High School, Satellite High, and Rockledge High Schools, all their kids, their fashion design classes, made custom ties. I'm not wearing one tonight because I wanted to acknowledge our contribution and our partnership with Belk, but if you follow it on Facebook, I post a new tie every day, and it has sparked some attention. Two things: one on the campaign, but also on our kids and the effort. And Ms. Glenn did a wonderful article showcasing our kids and their talents and their efforts, and appreciate that as well. So it was a lot of fun. The kids had a great time with it, and just appreciate them coming alongside. Was able to attend the Space Coast Daily Sheriff's Office Public Service Awards last weekend, and it is just an amazing event to showcase and celebrate leaders in our community who just go above and beyond and contribute so much to our community to be an amazing place to live. I got to tell you, I feel a little bit like a slacker coming away from one of those evenings because the work that so many in our community are doing is so impressive. I want to highlight several BPS employees who were recognized that evening. One of our students received the Young Citizen Award, a rising senior at West Shore Junior Senior High, Kyle Caudill, for his fundraising efforts at the school. Just continues to impress so many with his commitment to the community. And then Heavy Lifting Award was awarded to Dan Diesel, former assistant principal at Titusville High. Paula Farrell, we recognized her she's going to be retiring soon. Brandon Jenkins, former teacher of the year. Dinah Kramer, employee of the year. Ina Leiba, our principal of the year. Robert Lewis, former retired employee. Barbie Miller, who is the gifted teacher at Palm Bay Elementary School. Catherine Murphy, assistant principal at Longleaf. Casey Turner, assistant principal at Oak Park. And to your point, Miss Kathy Eward was inducted into the Public Service Hall of Fame that evening for her many years of service as a principal at Creole Elementary School. So it was just a great night, and I wanted to give those folks a shout out this evening. You may have seen I was a celebrity chef at Space Coast Junior Senior High. Had a great time making fish tacos with kids. A couple things I learned. One, fish tacos are good even for breakfast. And two, I was able to convince high school kids that fish tacos might be worth trying. I only had like 5 raise their hand at the beginning of the period saying they'd ever had a fish taco. By the end, I had a line willing to taste them. So it was a great time. And an amazing visit at Space Coast Junior Senior High. Visited their launch programs, classrooms. Teachers doing an amazing, very collaborative. Students were owning the learning in the classroom. The teachers were working in a co-teach environment and just the facilitators, but the dialogue was just absolutely fantastic. Enjoyed welcoming many parents. There had to have been close to 200 people in this room on Saturday morning. I couldn't believe that we get that many people out on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, and the resounding good morning was just so impressive. But our local community, parents coming together and learning how can we be better parents? How can we become increasingly engaged with our kids in school? And want to thank our Parenting in Today's World team for putting that together. And I want to do a shout out to 2 students who are putting together a Real Men Wear Pink campaign video. Ophelia and Gavin from Vieira High School took Cabinet and myself yesterday afternoon, and we had a great time putting together a video which will promote the fundraising efforts at our high schools that our student government kids have committed to. So want to take this opportunity, Ms. Zerker would be disappointed if I didn't, to remind everyone that benefits open enrollment for 2019 is currently underway. Employees are encouraged to complete their enrollment prior to the 3 p.m. deadline this Friday, October 12th. So the clock is ticking. Do not delay. Don't wait one more day. Make sure you take advantage of getting your information in for open enrollment. If you have not had your biometric screening completed for this year, please make an appointment with one of our wellness clinics to complete your screening prior to November 15th. That's an important piece to the open enrollment process. And did you get a chance, Mr. Craig, to?
He does not yet.
He goes last.
He always goes last.
Oh. Well, I wanted to I was going to recognize Ivan, the manager at Belk, for Belk's contribution to helping us all look more pink tonight with pink ties. I shared them with other Real Men Wear Pink candidates as well, and just have been a great partner with BPS and certainly with the Real Men Wear Pink campaign. And our cabinet in the back have been participating as well. Lots of pink in the room tonight, so we were hoping to have Ivan come up and take a picture, but we can do that after.
Ivan, can you raise your hand? I'm not sure.
Where,
Is that one of them? Where is
I thought he was here. No? All right. Well, we'll take a picture and we'll forward it to him.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. No, the only thing I was going to add is that Ms. Deskovich brought up the Lagoon Day, the high school students going out. My wife was able to also be a, I don't know, what in high school, do you call that a? Still a chaperone. Much to my sophomore daughter's chagrin, she was there. But it's the first time ever that we've had one teacher, Angela Patrick, Coach Patrick at Merritt Island, that both of my children have the same teacher, and so they both attended it, and they thought it was awesome. So I just wanted to give Coach Patrick a shout out for not only taking care of my kids, but inspiring them and giving them a day and an opportunity to see our environment in a different light and be a participant in figuring out how to care for it better. She does an amazing job. So thank you very much, Coach Patrick. Did you want to take a quick photo, Dr. Mullins?
Why don't we'll save it to the end of the meeting before we all go?
Perfect. Then that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Mr. Craig and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 1 resolution, 13 consent items, 9 action items, and 1 information item. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. Item A7 on administrative staff recommendations has been revised. Item F14 on Florida Blue Foundation Grant Program, and F21 on job description, Director Transportation are additions. There was a revision to item F13 on instructional staff recommendations, as well as a revision to item G23, Board Policy 3211, Whistleblower Protection. There was a deletion of an action item on School Board Policy 2520 on selection of instructional materials and equipment. Two board discussion, stand corrected. One board discussion points were added. One PBM bid review.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mullins. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Yes, Mr. Craig, there are 4 persons on this agenda item for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
My e-agenda is not working. Stop.
Let's go, boys.
The agenda is not working, so we'll take a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
At this time, please join me in congratulating Sarah Oberbeck from the position of teacher at Gemini Elementary to the position of interim assistant principal at Meadow Lane Intermediate School.
Hi, my name is Sarah Overbeck, and I want to say thank you to the board for your consideration. It's an honor to lead in this district. And Dr. Mullins, I appreciate you for being the leader you are with integrity. You are an inspiration to us all. And Mrs. Schwab, I am excited to be on your team and to lead the Meadow Lane community and to serve them with the values I've learned from Ms. Julian through the opportunities you've given me, and I'm so grateful. So go Mustangs. Thank you.
I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Keith Schechter on his reclassification and transfer from the position of magnet coordinating teacher at Palm Bay Magnet High School to the position of 10-month assistant principal, also at Palm Bay Magnet High.
I also want to take this opportunity to thank the board and Dr. Mullins for this opportunity. And I really want to give a special thanks every single time Mr. Kaminsky gets an opportunity to praise his staff. He does so on many occasions, and this is my opportunity to do that back to him. Thank you so much for all the opportunities you've presented me and so many others. You've done a wonderful job presenting. He's assembled an amazing staff, of which I would go to war for. So although I know I'm entering a difficult job, it'll be a pleasure to work in such a capacity, because I know I'll be working for an awesome team that's very supportive. And for that, I thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Dr. Mullins, please tell us about the resolution on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Craig and members of the board, tonight you are asked to adopt the resolution proclaiming the week of October 22nd through the 26th, 2018, as National School Bus Safety Week. Mr. Reed, will you please read the resolution for us?
Whereas every year the nation's 480,000 public school buses travel more than 5.8 billion miles to transport over 26 million children, more than half of America's school children, to and from school and school-related activities. And whereas Brevard Public Schools' excellent safety record in transporting over 25,000 students each day on 360 school buses has been achieved and must be maintained. And whereas school bus transportation is one of the safest forms of transportation in the United States, and school buses comprise the country's largest mass transportation fleet, And whereas school buses meet higher construction, equipment, and inspection standards than any other vehicle, and school bus drivers meet higher qualification, training, and testing standards than any other drivers, whereas the theme of this year's National School Bus Safety Week is #MyDriver, and whereas motorists must remember to stop when a school bus is stopped and its stop arm is extended and red lights are flashing, and whereas activities during School Bus Safety Week and throughout the year provide evidence of Brevard Public Schools' commitment to ensure the health and safety of school children who ride school buses, as well as students who walk, bicycle, or ride in cars to school. Now therefore be it resolved that the Brevard School Board does hereby proclaim October 22nd through 26th, 2018 as National School Bus Safety Week.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to Mr. Bob, the driver of my children. Both of my children have had him as a bus driver. My son's a senior now, and my elementary student also has Mr. Bob. High fives the kids every day off the bus. He gives them lollipops on Friday. I mean, he
That's awesome.
is just an amazing bus driver, and the hashtag my driver, my safety hero fits Mr. Bob.
That's awesome. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Pam, are we back on electronic? All right, hearing none, please vote.
It says adopt.
Motion passes 4-0. And we are now at public comment. Seeing as we have one public speaker, I will stop, not go through the entire thing, as I think Ms. Skipper knows the drill. So I'll ask Ms. Skipper to come up. As she does, we'll just say that before speaking, state your name, organization you represent, and identify the topic that you'll be discussing. It's okay, take it down. You are the only one.
Yeah, somebody else was disqualified too, but I don't know if they didn't comply or some of the other things. But yeah.
I thought you were looking at it. I thought you were looking at it.
She highlight everybody's? Ready? Good evening, Vanessa Skipper, Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. I've been doing a little bit of research on school facilities and the effect of air temperature and humidity on classroom and learning, and I have forwarded some of my findings to district personnel as well. I've highlighted most of the stuff in your packet that I'd like you to look at, but of course the entire study is interesting to read because it deals with much more than just temperature. It deals with class size as well. So looking in the introduction, it says school building design features and components have been proven to have a measurable influence upon student learning. Among the influential features and components are those impacting temperature, lighting, acoustics, and age. Researchers have found a negative impact upon student performance in buildings where deficiencies in any of these features exist. In addition, overcrowded school buildings and classrooms have been found to be a negative influence upon student performance, especially for minority and poverty students. Down at the bottom, it talks about poor school facilities that negatively impact teacher effectiveness and performance. And we all know that teacher pay is tied into VAM scores and can determine by a half a point whether or not a teacher is highly effective or effective and gets that raise. In section 3, a section that really stuck out to me is the highlighted portion towards the bottom, where it says, Harner concluded based upon an analysis of existing research that temperatures above 74 degrees adversely affected reading and mathematics skills. I believe we have ours set at 76 degrees when it works. A significant reduction in reading speed and comprehension occurred between 73.4 degrees Fahrenheit and 80.6 degrees Fahrenheit. According to his analysis, the ideal temperature range for effective learning in reading and mathematics is between 68 degrees and 74 degrees. F. Lanham reported that after the socioeconomic status of students, the most influential building condition variable that influenced student achievement was air conditioning. I'm just going to let you know that Cocoa High started its week, again this week, without air conditioning. I don't have to tell you the socioeconomic status of those students. Endeavor has been without air more times than I can count. I don't have to tell you that that school is already facing so many things that they can't control. This is something that we can fix. And one thing I've asked for 1,000,000 times, please stop turning the air off. It creates a humidity problem. It needs to be left on. This is easy. There's more highlights in the packet. Please read it. Please take time to read the whole report because it is fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skipper, and thank you for bringing that to us. I know we will share that with Ms. Han and her team, and I know you will continue to work with her to ensure that we get the best learning environment for our students. But thank you very much for bringing that. And the board does wish to thank this evening's speaker. Your willingness to speak to the board is greatly appreciated. That moves us into the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are 13 agenda items under this category, one with prior information.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Does any board member wish to pull any item?
21.
Mr. Ziegler, F21. Anybody else? Pam, would you please pull F21 for discussion? I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent items with the exception of the item F21 that was pulled for discussion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Ziegler, your motion?
Move to approve F21.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Susan. Mr. Ziegler, your discussion.
So I just wanted to raise a point that I've raised in the past. It is my personal opinion, and I do believe it's shared by many, that there are many people that go to school for a specific degree that don't stay in their field. And while early in their employment years, that is an important consideration, their degree, I think after a certain amount of time, experience supersedes a degree by a long shot. And that being the case, I believe that a manager or supervisor of people, especially in today's challenging times when it's really hard to find employees, should be allowed to hire somebody that may not have a specific degree if they have adequate experience. And of course, it's the accountability is on that manager who hires that person to get it right. That being the case, I've said before, I think we're way too strict on some of these degree requirements when experience rules. And this is a great example. We have an exceptional acting director of transportation who can easily take the position, but according to the requirements, we can't consider him. I have a problem with that. My last chance to speak up, well, my second to last chance to speak up, and I just wanted to make it known. I'd like to say or equivalent experience in these things, and give the manager who's doing the hiring the opportunity to make that decision if they're willing to be accountable for the individual because they have proven themselves or they have more than adequate experience. I would take an experienced person over somebody with a college degree, little experience every time, especially somebody that's proven themselves. And I'm curious if the board agrees. I would like to see a modification on this that says or equivalent experience. Anybody want?
I agree. My father never got his degree, but he can dance around everybody that comes out of the University of Florida Construction School. And that is routine over and over again, that people from my father's generation and Mr. Wheeler's generation and other people who didn't go to college, but they actually worked through the trades or they worked through their jobs and they came up through the experience. And I think that in today's society, when you're right, when we have opportunities to hire people who may have the experience but not the degree, I agree with you, and I would second that motion and move forward with trying to set something like that up.
I'd like to hear from Dr. Theddy if we can about, I tend to agree with you all for sure, but I want, she worked on this. I'm assuming researched other districts and what their requirements are, minimum requirements, and just like to hear her thoughts.
And if I could just clarify, I want to give our people more flexibility in these challenging times. And that's my ultimate goal. While I would love to see our acting director stay, I'm not saying that that's what she needs to do. But I do want to start easing up on these things so we can find quality people without being so restrictive.
Thank you.
Dr.
I
Tate?
did look at the job descriptions from 20 other large and very large districts in our state. And with the exception of 3 of them, they all required a minimum of a bachelor's degree, typically in public administration or business administration. There were several that required a master's degree at a minimum, and for those, they had the experience in lieu of the master's degree. The couple of districts that did not, that had experience in lieu, it was a may consider experience. One was Flagler County, a much smaller county. Another was Orange County, and the final was Miami-Dade County. And they had an experience in lieu, but their minimum requirement was a bachelor's degree, and typically in a specific field. We opened the job description by adding in some other fields and then adding in a master's degree in some other areas as well to hopefully improve the pool.
My next question is, if we wanted to modify this, can it still get approved tonight? I don't want to hold
Yes.
up because we need a
Yes.
director of transportation
Yes.
yesterday. Well, the day after you leave.
Friday.
So with respect to you on this, I'm okay with may consider as opposed to or has equivalent experience. I think that's what it is, and I want the person doing the hiring to be able to consider other options and be less restrictive. So I'd like to make a motion to amend this to include may consider experience
Can you
as an option.
again give the difference between may and or?
Mr. Susan, sorry, but there is an official
I second it.
motion.
I second it.
So
I'm sorry.
seconded, the motion as stated by Mr. Ziegler is made, seconded by Mr. Susan. And Mr. Susan, go ahead, please.
Matt? Now you can ask.
What is the difference between may and or? Could you explain that?
May gives the flexibility to look at something different. The or is typically where you separate bachelor's or master's degree. Master's degree would
Okay.
be preferred.
So we want-
In looking at all the different counties, this was not standard practice in all of the counties. I did not look at 67 districts. I only looked at the 20 that qualify as our large or very large districts. And typically at that director level, a bachelor's degree is required. In many cases, especially in our district, a master's is required for that director level.
I'm okay with that.
Dr. Theddy, thank you. In your professional opinion or in professional outlook, is this something you think that the board is tying your hands with, or is this the direction that you would go? You brought it to the board under the guise of our present policy and then vetting our policy against other, the present job description, sorry, not policy, but the present job description, and then vetting it against other counties. Is it something that you would like to have revisited. My concern is that if you go down the road of just individually, every position's different, and in this case, we're talking about a very, very, qualified individual that we are then ostensibly creating a job description for, which is a labor issue as well. So that's my concern, because that can be a challenge, that could be challenged as well.
So my intention was to bring it exactly as it's written. I did not bring a job description writing the job for an individual. I wrote the job the job description based on the industry standards that I could find at that level of employment for an individual. Of course, we'll take direction from the board, and whatever your wishes are, we'll do.
Okay, Mr. Susan?
And I don't think, I know, Andy, it's valiant that you're trying to give Mr. Wheeler, but I think he's already.
No, let's be clear. I've talked about this
Right.
many times in the past.
That's what I'm trying.
This is just another example.
Right.
So I'm using this as an opportunity to bring it to light, even if it's like third or fourth time I've
And I
discussed
think,
that.
right, and I think,
With low unemployment, our people need more flexibility. It's a challenging market out there. And it doesn't say they have to hire anybody with experience. It's giving them the flexibility rather than leaving a position open for a long period of time because they can't pigeonhole it.
and that's where I was saying directly to what Mr. Craig's conversation was, is that this is a singular thing that I think we should amend tonight, but I also think that we should move forward with looking into doing this in many of the other positions, because it does give us some flexibility during a time when we have low employment. And you're right, Mr. Craig, that this is kind of a singular thing. And I wanted to say that I don't think Mr. Wheeler, I think he's already accepted a position in another district, and he's already moving that way. So this would not be to fill for him. This would be just to fix this situation, to give us some more flexibility in this regard, and then start moving forward with a longer range of doing it more broad in some other areas. Does that make sense? That's why I support the motion.
Understood. Ms. Deskovich?
Just quickly, I think it's a good idea, not everywhere, you said director level
Right.
or above. There's some fields, obviously, where you absolutely will need a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, but some of these fields where are more, I don't know the word, maybe vocational-ish, where you could have worked your way up through the ranks and on-the-job training, really, and experience, and you just have some natural leadership skills. I think it could be a potential, so I support it.
Okay.
Can I have
Any
some
other discussion?
clarity?
Yes,
around-
add some clarity, please.
Yeah. No, I wanted to make sure I
Oh,
have clarity
No,
around what we're doing.
well, we have a motion, and I just want to make sure nobody else has any more discussion. Hearing none, then we will take a voice vote on the amendment to the motion to add may consider, as stated by Mr. Ziegler. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign? Aye. Motion passes 3-1. And the only reason I voted against it is because I believe Dr. Teddy brought it, and it is her decision to hire, and her answer says to me that she is comfortable in this specific case with the way she wrote it to begin with. So, that is,
Amended motion?
I'm sorry?
Vote on the amended motion?
Yeah, now we have to vote, now we have to vote it as.
Now we vote on the regular motion. We just,
Yes.
yeah. So now it's time to vote on the regular motion. And Ms. Enval, explain, to make sure that we're all on the same page, what a yes vote and a no vote is.
So you're going to vote on the original motion.
Right.
Which was to approve the job description as proposed.
As proposed. So a yes vote would be against what you just voted for.
No.
No.
If you don't want what was brought to you, you would do a no vote.
Correct,
Just
that's what I'm
vote
saying.
on the
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I said. I said in the
Right, okay.
opposite. Yeah, so
Okay.
if you voted yes in this one,
Right.
then you would be going against the people that voted yes in it's opposite of what the last one was.
No, if you,
Except when I click on it, John, it says we're approving it with the,
Yes,
Oh,
to
with
include
the-
may
that's correct.
consider.
With-
Because,
yes, we're approving it with the amended, it's amended, so
Yes.
you're approving it with the
Approving with the
amendment.
Amended
amendment.
version.
Got it.
Is what we're doing.
If it fails, then the motion can be restated.
that was what I wanted to make sure we had the right thing. Okay, so now we can vote on the amended, and we can vote electronically.
Yeah, it's just like a bill. We're amending a bill, and then we're voting the bill. It's perfect. Okay, let's roll.
It is slow.
Don't vote twice.
Technology is a wonderful thing.
Thank you, Dr. Teddy. I think well,
Thank you.
your direction will come in about 10 seconds, hopefully.
Thank you.
But I think you know what it is already. I don't see it coming.
Well, it's coming.
Let's vote with a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye. Vote, motion passes 3-1. Thank you. All right, I don't think we need a break. We'll move on to the action agenda. Dr. Mullins.
I can't have 78, I have menopause.
There are 9 items under this category, 8 of which are policy revisions. The revision schedule is as follows for all of the policy revisions. Cabinet met on August 20th, 2018. The Rule Development Workshop was held on September 25th, 2018, at which the public had its first opportunity to provide input. Tonight, October 9, 2018, is the school board meeting during which the second public hearing is held. Please note that all proposed revisions encompass the suggested language from Neola. First is Policy 3211 on whistleblower protection, which is being revised to clarify how employees, agents of the district, and independent contractors who have entered into a contract with the district can report any violation or suspected violation of any federal, state, or local law, policy, or regulation committed by an employee or agent of any agency or independent contractor doing business with the district, and other changes in compliance with applicable Florida law. Particular areas of revision include the following: requiring written reports to be made to the school board attorney unless the alleged misconduct involves the school board attorney, in which case the written report shall be made to the board chair. Authorizing the school board attorney to engage outside counsel to conduct an investigation involving alleged misconduct of a board member or the superintendent. Requiring investigation to be facilitated by the school board attorney consistent with the administrative procedures related to this policy and the procedures prescribed in Florida Statute 112.3189.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone who has come to speak to the revisions in Policy 3122, whistleblower protection? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the revisions in Policy 3122, whistleblower protection.
Move to approve.
3211, 3211. Sorry, just want to make sure.
Well, let's start over then.
Yes.
Is there anyone who has come to speak to the revisions in Policy 3211, whistleblower protection? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the revisions in Policy 3211, whistleblower protection?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
We discussed this in a workshop, and I've had some additional thoughts on it. We're in the midst of a whistleblower situation right now, which I can't say that I like the way that it's evolved. So while I believe the school board attorney is the right person to write to, I'm thinking there should be an additional. I think in the case of if it's a subordinate of the superintendent and his organization, he should be included in it, and/or the chair. I just think there should be more awareness. Now, the other option is, because I don't think we want to sit here and discuss the details of a modification, I'm wondering if we should wait until the outcome of this whistleblower and to evaluate if we want to make any modifications to this.
I had another thought also. I know it's kind of late in the game here, but especially with the last, we've been going through the whistleblower process, and I think we're learning some things here. Our auditor, RSM, said that for other districts, they monthly review, just as part of their contract, all the whistleblower complaints that have come in, and that doesn't mean detailed investigations. It means that the school board attorney just submits monthly a list of the complaints that have come in. They eyeball them if they see anything glaring that they think wasn't handled right, or they just kind of keep a second set of eyes on it. And It's no additional cost to us. It's just it would be another line. It doesn't need to be added, I think, to the policy, but in our procedural thing, we might want to consider that.
Ms. Envald, where do you think these should reside?
So I think, even though it's not in policy, I've done the administrative procedures that I've shared with you, and those include notifying the board chair and/or the superintendent when a whistleblower complaint is filed. I mean, those are in the procedures, and that's something that the superintendent can approve. I haven't sent them to him yet because we haven't revised this policy. But if that helps, we can do that. I don't know that our scope. I don't know that our scope with RSM includes whistleblowers.
It currently doesn't, but they said they would be glad to do it just as part of their current contract. just
Is that
add
something
to
that
it.
perhaps we should run by the audit committee?
You can do it. I like the idea. The whole idea is just to have more eyes on it. I do like the modification to the administrative procedure. That does cover the concern, although I think it covers the concern. It's because
I
the
think
policy
yeah.
is being specific.
I think the policy is good because it has a single point of contact, which I think is critical. But then the procedure, the administrative procedure of how that distribution happens, I think is where we need to be have a little more fidelity. So
And those can.
you're right. I think we need to have the audit committee weigh in on that portion of it. And then the entire board probably included in the notification process through the procedural
And
portion.
since this is a new procedure, I have
Yeah.
the administrative procedures are living and breathing. So if things aren't working well, the board can provide, hey, could you fix this or whatever? And that way we can work through the superintendent to,
Okay.
tweak those things as
Okay.
needed, as the process continues.
I agree.
So if it could be brought to audit committee to add to RSM's contract, I'm good with that. And if Dr. Mullins, you will make sure that that distribution is included in the administrative procedures, I'm good with that. And you can call the motion.
I have one
Ms.
more thing.
Deskovich, go.
Since
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a little bit different than what we were discussing, but it applies. I just want the whole world, all of our employees to know we're putting this in place. We've made modifications. Report any whistleblower complaints to the board attorney, Ms. Enval, and we're going to work hard to get that message out. I think we're going to put some stuff on the webpage.
We are. We are.
And this was a long time coming, and I just don't want it to go by so quickly and lightly because I think it's an important action that we are taking by updating this. Yeah, just want to throw that in there.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. And just so you know, I did speak with the superintendent, with Dr. Mullins. Whistleblower to me is, it has some connotative to both people that might participate in it. Anyway, I think something more lines of the school board integrity. Anyway, just the name itself, I think will allow people to be a little bit more involved in the process. So I've thrown that on his plate. We'll see what you all think going down the road. Nothing that has to happen tonight, but just something that we look at from more of a business integrity, because that really is what it is. We're looking at the integrity of the organization to make sure that we have a lot of eyes on us and encouraging people to speak up at all times. So, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
Next is item G24 on purchasing solicitations. We will resume, well,
Move to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, because I thought we were still in the policy. Thank you. Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Now, Dr. Mullins, back to policy.
okay. We will resume our policy revisions. Our next one is item G25 on School Board Policy 8210, School Calendar. This policy is being revised to clarify the procedures regarding school calendar development guidelines and other changes in compliance with applicable Florida law. Particular areas of revision include the following: defines method of determining the school year calendar, establishing the standard for length of school year, holidays and vacations, teachers' in-service days, and work days.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone here who has come to speak on the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 8210, school calendar? Hearing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 8210, school calendar.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. All of a sudden, it's working fast. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
Next is School Board Policy 8800, Religious, Patriotic Ceremonies and Observance. This policy is being revised to clarify the procedures regarding students opting out of reciting the pledge upon written request of parent. It clarifies federal and state law related to students and staff and the expression of individual religious beliefs. The changes also incorporate each school and district facility displaying in a conspicuous place the state motto, "In God We Trust."
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone here who has come to speak on the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 8800, Religious and Patriotic Ceremonies and Observances? Hearing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 8800, Religious and Patriotic Ceremonies and Observances.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
We are now at School Board Policy 8810, the American flag. This policy is being revised to clarify language as follows. Each public K-20 educational institution that is provided or authorized by the Constitution and laws of Florida shall display daily in each classroom the flag of the United States. The flag must be made in the United States, must be at least 2 feet by 3 feet, and must be properly displayed in accordance with Title IV USC.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone here who has come to speak on the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 8810, the American flag?
Can I speak?
Hearing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 8810, the American flag.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Mr. Susan.
I just wanted to take a minute and thank Mr. Ziegler, because when this ties back to the All-American Flag Act that my students worked on for 3 years. And many people don't understand that we are the only state in the entire country that actually passed a law that says that all our flags that are in government buildings are made in the USA with fibers that are grown here. Okay. Many other places have fought and not passed it, but we did. Came out of Brevard County, but I wanted to take a minute and thank Mr. Ziegler, because we went a whole year where we were laughed out of the state legislature for being the worst bill ever. It's literally in print, and I had a group of kids that just felt like they did something wrong. Like our sponsor was not the most popular person up there, so we ended up in a bad spot. And then the next year, Mr. Ziegler asked to have it put on the board agenda and had it read as a resolution. Now what that did, Andy, was it gave all the other municipalities the feeling that they had to do it too. And after you did that here, Melbourne, Palm Bay, all the other cities started to do it too. So not only did I want to say thank you for that, but I also wanted to say what your impact did in doing that. And I think all the other board members were on board. It was just the fact that you took it. And I wanted to say thank you to that, because as a teacher, scared out of your mind, not knowing what to do, trying to do all those things, it was very honorable to have our school district support that. And I just want to take a minute and say thanks. That's all.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm going to donate, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at this guy. I did want to say that there's a copy I presented a real bill, and there's a copy up there. So what I'll do is I'll present my copy that I got. There was only 6 that were handwritten by the governor when he flew in and signed it at Vieira High School, and I'll put my copy in there. And then That way there's an original, but when I leave, I'm getting it back out of there. Yeah, it's on
It's
the
right on
wall
the
over
wall
there.
right
It
there.
is, it's on the
Yeah.
wall over there. So only piece of legislation ever passed by the district.
Outstanding, and nice job, Mr. Susan. And
Thanks.
out of that, we got a nice video bite of you.
I know, every single time.
Every single time,
USA,
shaking your arm
USA.
with the governor next to you. Is there any other discussion?
No, sir.
Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
We are now at School Board Policy 7217, Weapons. This policy is being revised to expressly prohibit students from carrying or storing of a firearm or weapon in vehicles, to permit school resource officers, or SROs, assigned to a school to possess and store law enforcement agency department-issued long guns on property owned or operated by the board, and to require SROs to comply with their agency's policies and procedures regarding weapons.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone here who has come to speak on the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 7217, Weapons? Hearing none, at this time I will entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 7217, Weapons.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Mr. Ziegler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
We're double checking on something.
Oh, okay.
No, check with Pam needs to check with Ms. Enval on something real quick. Make sure our language is correct.
Certainly.
Okay. So go ahead and proceed with 5772? Okay. All right, I think we're good. We are now at School Board Policy 5772, Weapons. This policy is being revised to expressly prohibit students from carrying or storing of a firearm or weapon in vehicles, to permit school resource officers assigned to a school to possess and store law enforcement agency department-issued long guns on property owned or operated by the board, and to require SROs to comply with their agency's policies and procedures regarding weapons.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Is there anyone here who has come to speak on the proposed revisions to School Board Policy 5772, Weapons? Seeing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 5772, Weapons.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion?
If I may just clarify.
Yes, Ms. Enval.
These are the same revisions to 5772 and 7217, just for the public's edification. Our 5772 policy is in the students section, while our 7217 section is in the community. And so it was important, we have two policies that are titled weapons, so these revisions encompass both policies, so there's no discrepancy between the two.
Thank you, Ms. Enval. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. Dr. Mullins.
School Board Policy 2240 is on controversial issues. This policy is being revised to clarify the discussion of controversial issues in instructional programs and course of study, and other changes in compliance with applicable Florida law. Particular areas of revision include removal of duplicated language that appears in 2240, controversial issues administrative procedure.
Is there anyone here who has come to address the revisions to School Board Policy 2240, controversial issues? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revisions to School Board Policy 2240, controversial issues.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion? Mr. Ziegler.
No, I seconded
He
it.
seconded.
Oh, I thought it was Susan.
Whatever you want to do.
But if I,
Moved by Ms. Deskovich, seconded by Mr. Ziegler. Pam, please correct that record. I apologize. Their voices sounded the same. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 4-0. That concludes the public hearing on policies portion of this evening's agenda. We will now move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and will be brought back for action at subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Mullins.
There is one item under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to board member reports and discussion points. And we have one discussion point this evening. Mr. Ziegler has brought PBM bid review. Mr. Ziegler.
Thank you. And the reason for this is because I think by the time the investigation on the pharmacy ends, we won't be here, Mr. Craig. So as you all know, healthcare and pharmacy have been a passion of mine for many, many years, and I wanted to just provide some information, some background and some thoughts. I'm not looking for any action. This is just informative at this point in time. And Mrs. Envel's going to help out a bit here also. The going out on bid for something we know well ahead of time when we're going to go out on bid, and Mr. Langdorf and I have been discussing and analyzing what we thought we needed to do to save millions more on pharmacy, probably a year out. So this was in the plans for a while. Then there was some concern from staff, and the board decided that we would direct to go out on bid, which I think was the appropriate thing to do. I'll let you know, honestly, I had some suspicion that a bid would be awarded. Something just felt wrong about the situation, and sure enough, there was no award, and it was very concerning that we were told there was no data on Cigna's disk, which at that point in time, my understanding was then therefore we had no qualified bidders, and so there was no award. And that was pretty much, I thought, the end of it until a couple of weeks ago. I happened to have a conversation with Dean Marabella, the president of Cigna, at the superintendent's breakfast. And I just happened to ask him, has this ever happened before? And he said, no, it hasn't. And I said, and then I said, don't you provide any of this in print? Or just on disk? And he said, well, I think we've provided it in print. And sure enough, as you know from the information I requested, the information was provided in print with the exception of some data on the disk. Because of that data that was missing on the disk, they were deemed disqualified. And the Cigna then, and I also found out about this letter from Cigna, who requested the ability to provide that data after the fact. The legal opinion here was that they were still disqualified, and maybe Mrs. Envel can just elaborate a little bit more as to what you recall.
Yes, the solicitation required a number of different pricing categories. They were an attachment, N and P. There were some pricing requirements, and there was the repricing claims file guide.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not speaking with that properly, but both were required to be submitted electronically. And so, and the second one, the attachment P, that was on the blank disk, had 25,000 fields that had to be filled. So there was an addendum question. After the solicitation is issued, the bidders have an opportunity to seek questions and seek clarifications. And there was an addendum that was issued that basically a bidder had asked, do we have to submit it electronically? And the response was yes, because it has to be on the disk because it's multiple, it's too big to print out, right? And then the second question was, if we don't submit it on disk, will we be disqualified? And the answer was yes, because they have to. I guess the bid pricing, I'm not really, I understand it surfacely, but I don't understand it. But I guess the the claims files, we're looking at those prices to determine whether or not it's going to be a savings to the district. So anyway, long story short, when those, I didn't see the submittals, but when I was told the discs weren't formatted or didn't have that information on there, I looked to the statutes, and there's 120.57 that requires that it provides that no submissions made after the bid or proposal opening which amend or supplement the bid shall be considered. And so that's why we have in all of our solicitation documents, we have the specific due dates and times, and then that's to make it fair for everybody. The bidders are responsible for making sure they get everything to us in time, and they can't submit stuff afterwards. And so it was this after submission, even though it was probably a oversight on their part, but we would be subject to challenge if we did accept it after the fact. And I believe there were 2 respondents that were disqualified for not submitting all the proper information. I don't remember, Stigna, and I believe it was someone else as well.
All that's as I recall also. So
Can she read that statute?
Yes, it's 120, I looked it up real quick, 120.57 subsection 3F. No submissions made after the bid or proposal opening which amend or supplement the bid or proposal shall be considered.
Thank you.
that's.
So you said the paper copies were submitted? Were they submitted after?
Let me
I'm confused.
give you some more information, and this is just for edification purposes. So, this is also when I learned that the information that was not on the disc was the repricing data. They did submit their bid. And the repricing data, just to elaborate on the repricing, and this is a great thing to do for this type of a bid, is to ask the vendor to reprice all of the past data we have on prescriptions based on the new proposal if we were on that plan. So what would it have looked like last year? So, Ms. Emma, you're absolutely right. What would we have saved last year if we were on this plan that is being proposed? That is historic information. That's not modifiable. That's not opinion. That's just a fact of repricing data. And of course, going forward, there's no necessary guarantee because you don't know what your patients are going to use. You can project by trends what they're going to use and what the potential savings are. So then I asked, when I looked at the letter, I just want to make some points because I don't believe that they should have been disqualified. There were 3 sections in our bids. One, the district reserves the right to allow for the clarification of questionable entries and the correction of obvious mistakes. Obvious mistake, they left the repricing data on. Now, off the disc. And so the question should be asked is how critical is that repricing data to being included? How detrimental is it to another bidder who may have provided it, because we want to be fair and equitable to the best of our ability. I get that. Minor irregularities, the district reserves the right to waive minor irregularities and proposals, providing such action is the best interest of the district. Minor irregularities are defined as those that have no adverse effect on the district's best interest, or will not affect the outcome of the selection process. Will not affect the outcome of the selection process by giving the respondent an advantage or benefit not enjoyed by other respondents. Absolutely agree. You've got to keep things fair. Can't affect the outcome of the award. And then the last section was the district reserves the right to accept or reject any or all proposals received as a result of this RFP, or to negotiate separately with competing respondents, and to waive any informalities, defects, or irregularities in the proposal, or to accept a proposal or proposals which, in the judgment of the proper officials, in the best interest of the district. I believe in all 3 of these qualify Cigna. Now, that ship sailed. We can't go back. I'm not looking for a vote or reversal. It's just informative. And the reason I believe it qualifies is because, if you recall, I also asked for the bid tabulation. So I want to know how impactful this data was on the award of the bid. Well, what I expected was a blank form because I was somehow, maybe I misunderstood, but I didn't think there were any qualified bidders. Well, on the bid tabulation form, there were 3. But also did not seem to be a rating on the form for the repricing data. So if the repricing data wasn't part of the evaluation, it did not impact the selection process for award of bid. So it was minor, and secondary to the core of the bid. And since the Cigna had provided all this information, either on disc or in print, I just absolutely disagree that they were disqualified. And so my point I wanted to make to you all is that things did not appear to me what they really are. I don't know if we didn't ask the right questions. I don't know if we weren't given the right information. But what I want to tell you is that I believe that Cigna should have been awarded the bid and not disqualified. Well, I don't know if they should have been awarded. I shouldn't say that. They should have been evaluated, not disqualified. And there were 3 vendors that were qualified and evaluated and rated on that bid sheet. So I'm curious if maybe they just wasn't as good as Cigna's renewal deal, which we have the ability to just choose, you know what, we don't like any of these bids. The renewal offer is better. That's perfectly okay. I mean, they did offer us about a $1.8 million improvement in our situation. I don't know what our improvement would have been if we accepted their bid and awarded on the bid. But I wanted to, because I have some more insight on all of this, and I'm not going to be here at the outcome of that. I wanted the board members, and I wanted this recorded, as to what I've learned unexpectedly about this pharmacy bid that Ms. Deskovich, you asked to be looked into more detail.
So the other than Cigna, weren't they all disqualified? If I'm recalling, I thought there
Well,
was no credible bids or something like that. Are
If
you
they were all
saying-
disqualified, I don't understand why 3 of them were evaluated, and not Cigna was not evaluated. So I'm still have some confusion, but from what I learned to date, I wanted to share with you and say that I believe we had many positions here that we should not have, and especially a vendor that has taken such good care of us and has been such a great partner and is doing a good job. I just feel that that was the wrong way to treat them, and I don't think it was in the best interest of the district to disqualify them.
Can you read that statute again? Because I looked up 120.57 and it's not anything to do with
120.5 says in subsection 3F.
120.57, subsection 3F. So we're in additional procedures for particular cases, additional procedures applicable to hearings.
Yep, so scroll down to
involve disputed
3F.
issues of material fact. Okay.
Right, and submissions after the fact should not be accepted. However, in a case of a piece of data that is not unique to the evaluation process, we have the right in many cases to say, okay, you could submit it and move forward.
Is all of that information in that email? All of the
Yes,
stuff
and
that you-
in the letter from Cigna's attorneys, where their legal stance was on that, and it pointing out to things in our bid package, they're accurate and right about that. It's just a matter of interpretation and opinion.
Have you sent that to RSM?
I don't know. If I,
Will you do that? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'll
they're
do
looking
that,
into all
yes.
this. They make sure they have that information.
okay, I will.
So
That's all I have, is just an
I got some
informative.
questions.
And I don't know if any, if you have any questions,
I
I'll
do.
answer them to the best of my ability.
Because I'm still trying to see where I didn't understand that statute, but did we write them back a response?
Yes.
It's on, sorry. Did we write them back a response to their 3?
Yes, because they had sent us a letter, and I'd have to look back through my files, but as my recollection, they sent us a letter and said, hey, sorry, the discs weren't, or didn't have the information they needed. Would you please, we're sending them to you now for consideration.
They wrote that letter.
Yes.
And then did we respond to them with the letter that he has where they were requesting these 3 statutory pieces or policies or whatever, we think that we should be able to resubmit them? Did we send them back a letter?
Yes, and I believe we quoted this, the 120.57.
Can
Okay,
you get that to us?
Yes, I'd
yeah,
have to
if we
look
can
through
get
the
that. And then,
file.
so, because I saw that same thing when the information was coming across, and it looked like, besides the ones that were kicked off because of the NDA that we wouldn't sign, besides Cigna, who had the discs, there was 3 other vendors.
There was.
Why were they not awarded the bid at least, or allowed to compete?
We wouldn't know. And we don't need an answer to that, I don't think, right now.
Yeah, I don't think
This-
Ms. Enball has that answer. That's not her place.
Should we ask Penny? I mean,
I didn't prep anybody to
No,
discuss this, I
yeah,
was just
If we want to
informing.
discuss this further, I think we need to add it to either a retreat or a workshop.
Correct.
Because this wouldn't be the place to start bringing people up. at this
Correct.
point.
And I
This would be
presume it'll be
discussion,
included
but
in
this
the
is discussion amongst the board
Right.
to then tell the superintendent what you'd
Okay.
like him to do.
I agree.
Okay.
That's all, I wanted to bring that all to your attention. And if you all have any questions, you can ask, we can discuss that, and we are not voting on PBM. And I'm certainly not going to be voting much of anything going forward, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
No, the only thing I'm a little confused, to be quite honest, because the last time it was brought up, it was that Cigna may have done it on purpose, and that was stated in public, that they may have done it on purpose so that we would give it back to them immediately, knowing that no one else would be able to touch it. So now we're saying that no, they were such a great partner that we should have allowed them to submit things that they, for whatever reason, left out. If they're such a great partner, then we wouldn't have gone out to bid to find somebody different. Other than to leverage the opportunity to bid and force them to a lower rate. I mean, that's the whole reason. So, I mean, you can't have it both ways. So they either are a great partner or they're not a great partner, or, it's one of those things. But from a contracting perspective, it is something that I actually know and understand. The procedures and policies that we follow are exactly the same that are on the federal and state level. I mean, you don't, if it states in the solicitation that you will submit electronically, it's submitted electronically. And if you don't submit it electronically, you're disqualified. That's the way it works.
Then you need to suggest that we change all of our bidding documents, because in the bidding documents, it's very clear that
No, what you
Very
read is for administrative things. I'm telling you, that isn't for the specifics of numbers and things that can change and things that can morph into a better deal as they continue to look at it. Those are for administrative language things that may have answered a question that is more global in nature and not specific to a thing. That's what those items are for. And certainly you always give the person, the solicitor, the ability to be somewhat flexible, but you never allow anybody to just leave something out and then let them bring it back later or bring it in a different format. That's not how it works.
Agreed. If it's the bid in itself, if this is supplemental data that is not, it is factual data that the bidding proposal is applied against. So it's not like bringing it back after the fact is going to change any outcome. It wasn't part of the evaluation process, so it's relevant to award. It's just it's a let's see what it looks like type of thing. So it's more of an administrative piece of data. So I agree. If it was the bid, it was the discount off AWP, or it was the ancillary services that were included, you're absolutely right. But for the particular, and which is what I thought, and I think we thought was the primary bulk of the information, the bid was not there. But my point is that's not the case. It's ancillary data that's not critical to the award of the bid. It's more administrative. I do agree with you, John. Maybe we don't see it exactly eye to eye, but I do agree with what you're saying, and I do believe that I personally, my opinion is it falls in that realm.
Okay.
John, if I could speak to
Yes.
the comment that you made earlier, I agree with you 100%. The culture behind it was, when this was presented to us to go out to bid, was that we told Cigna that we were thinking about going out to bid, and we were told that originally, way back when we had our first workshop, that they then said, don't go out to bid because then we'll give you this offer. And I think that was misconstrued from the beginning as to why we were told we should go out to bid from the beginning piece of it. And then also every event that followed that seemed kind of a certain way, but now that we've come retrospect and 180 degrees and we can look at it 360 degrees, look back at it and say, this is what happened, these were the things that were said, it's starting to form a different story, and that's where I think the concern is here. And if I could speak to what you were saying, because you are 100% right, there was this feeling the other way, and now it's shifted, so I wanted to kind of explain why that was.
Okay. So is the board comfortable with then waiting until the audit is completed and then adding it to a workshop and/or retreat so that we can examine postmortem the things that led up to it and how you may want to change procedure inside of, in our procurement policy or procurement area. Is that about what we're looking at?
I would say definitely that, and if there's any way that in the meantime that I would like to ask some questions that I might have for that workshop.
Oh, sure.
And then I would also like to see if there is anything that may have misconstrued due to somebody not doing what they should have, that we examine that also.
So do you want Dr. Mullins to do that, or do you want to, you're going to
No, no,
ask
no,
those
we
questions?
Wait for the RSM.
Oh, at that
have
workshop or something?
And we talk about it there, but anything up till then, give us the right to ask questions up till then.
Okay,
That's
so
all.
Dr. Mullins, are you good with that? We add that to a workshop and then get some granularity on the whole big picture once we get some better information. All right, thank you. Are there any other board member reports or discussion items?
We're not discussing aftercare fees?
No, and you want me to just
Mr.
real fast? Yeah. I talked to Dr. Mullins. He said that, the aftercare issue that we were doing, I didn't mean to put it on the agenda. I apologize. So what we're going to do is it's going to be part of a overall workshop on aftercare fees. And I think that we'll be able to address it then, and it'll be a better time to do it.
Okay. Dr. Mullins?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
All right. Then, having no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.